Guy Code with Rena Osware. And welcome back to another episode of The Guy Code. This episode is called Man Up, and I'll be joined by my friend Charles. Charles, how's it going?
Very good, sir.
Welcome to The Guy Code, and in this episode we're going to talk about manning up, that facing rejection and disappointments that I think every guy faces generally in life, and especially due to the recent occurrences in this country, Kenya. There has been a lot of gender-based violence, mainly stemming out of disappointed, love relationships. So let's just go into Guy Code with Rena Osware. Get into it first. Have you ever experienced a major disappointment yourself?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Before, I'd dated someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we got in this love affair, and one of my biggest disappointments was this particular lady was poor in communication. Mm-hmm. Just giving an incident where she was running an errand in town, and she was also schooling. So those days that she was not doing anything, whether she was not going to school or going to work, she never told me. She used to go online. She would write, "I'm neither going to school nor to town." So I was supposed to read in between the lines and act, on that particular message. And all of us know that we are not angels, that we can get such messages. So at the end of the day, at that time, I didn't understand these things and how to act, or rather how to deal with them. But basically, I came to realize and learn a few things later. But fortunately,
the relationship ended, I believe.
Yes, it is.
So I can understand your situation in poor communication, because that is really very irritating in a relationship, in that you're supposed to communicate and understand what your partner is going through and get to relate to them, and when they don't give that feedback, you're wondering why do they need to hide anything from you. And I think that disappointment definitely would, it's a disappointment, and it will affect you and just frustrate you. So how are you told to handle such disappointments, like probably through your upbringing? When you encounter this disappointment, did you refer back to your upbringing on how you saw or how you were taught how to handle such disappointments and frustrations? Guy Code with Rena Osware.
Just to submit that I was not taught on how to deal with these things. I had to learn them myself. But after I had lesson, I had to reflect back after the relationship ended. So I had to see where we went wrong and try to correct a few things. So these things came later. I was not taught by anyone, but I realized that basically you have to understand one another. We express ourselves differently, and we have different personalities. And maybe if you are the same, this one will be boring. Yeah. It's for us to know the other, understand what they do, how they act, why do they do that, what is the reasoning behind what they do, and we'll be in a more peaceful environment with one another.
I think that's a good thing, because most of these situations where you see this gender-based violence, most of the time it said that the man was very controlling individual. He wanted his partner to act in a certain way, to go to certain places. We all know there are some guys who are that controlling. Like, no, I don't want you to go such a place. Why are you going at this time? Why are you dressed like that? Why are you controlling your movements? So I can notice from you that since in that situation where you decided that instead of just confronting and trying to declare what your will to be done, you decided to understand why she behaves in that certain way that she behaves, and learning from that and saying that you didn't learn it from anyone is quite impressive. Because also for myself, probably I learned it from my parents, of course, and how I was raised with both of them. I saw that through confrontation they went through communication, and you're trying to understand your partner, why they do the things they did. And I don't think anyone is insane. If you decided to come into a relationship, both of you, it means that at least you agree on one thing, in that you want to be together and you value each other. So anyone who values you will want to just do things that please you. So, and if they don't do that, there has to be a reason, and I think you can definitely talk it out. So in that situation, could you say that in such situation of disappointment in your relationship, were you expected to react in a certain way? For example, probably if you told a friend what you're going through at the time, did they expect you to react in a certain way?
Basically, I think sometimes these things are too personal sometimes, and I've learned that sometimes having so many expectations on someone is very wrong. Basically, I'm one person. Just to tell you that this best friend thing about I have a best friend and that. Maybe for me it doesn't apply much because I've always had issues with best friends. But I only say that because I think I can put my things together. If there's something that has gone wrong, I can put it together. But of course, I knew when I ran to my friends, of course, those will be positive and others will be negative. There's one friend I shared actually the story, and they only told me that this lady behaves like this because she loves you. She wants you to chase her. She wants you to be up to her and make steps, that you are following her. And that's a love language. That's what one of the friends told me. She told me, now you understand. Go talk to her, talk things out, and you continue.
I think that's a good thing, in that you had the right people around you to help you through the situation. And would you agree that it's very important when you're going through such frustration, it's better to share with someone? There's the saying that a problem shared is a problem half solved. So could you say that it was really important for you to share it with someone so that you understand a different perspective, in that that probably if you're overreacting, or you have the right to react in the way you did? So do you think that it's very important to share if you have such frustrations?
It is important that you share, but just to put a disclaimer on it, you not everybody who gives you a listening ear wants to help you. But some of them become a speaker, they become an output to the world, that this fella is going through this and that. So you have to be very selective. You have to come up with a criteria on who you're going to share these things with, and be the right person. Maybe they'll tell you whether you're overreacting, or where you're going wrong, or where the other partner is going wrong.
That's a good thing, in that, okay, so your method is that you communicate to the person and you understand where they're coming from. Has that method always worked in other relationships, believing that previous relationship ended and you started engaging with other women, and of course not just even in dating sexually, but even just platonic relationships? Did it help in that when you got into a certain some differences, that you use that tactic and it worked? Does that method always work?
I think first of all, I think the mind of a human being is like a blank book once they are born.
Yeah.
So it's what is put in their mind that informs their life. So unless you understand their socialization, and you understand where they're coming from, what was fed in them as when they were young, then you might never come to understand why they behave like this and that. And I'll give you an example. I had a friend from Southern Sudan who in class would talk about Southern Sudan and maybe would get agitated, and he didn't want anybody commenting about Southern Sudan because from their socialization, everything you talk about them, they felt it's like you're attacking them. You know, they come from a society where they have a lot of violence in them. They want to beat you up, and unless you understand that, you'll not get along well. You might find yourself, trying to fight them back, attack them, but it's not their wish. It's something that is put into them, and you have to understand it for coexistence.
So what you just said is there are some people who, I think it's true that through their upbringing they are taught to react in a certain way, and through the environment they grew up in. So probably for some listeners who say, I think most men, they said that probably don't undertake or apply your method because of an ego thing, in that they say that why should I try and understand where she's coming from? I think what she's doing is stupid, and as the man, I think I should lead this relationship and tell her that how this is how you're supposed to act, and this is how to. So do you think it's a pride thing that we don't want to know, we don't want to put ourselves in the other person's shoes? You think as for men it's a pride thing?
I think men is it pride or ego? I think men are not able to swallow some liters of that ego. I think men want to dictate everything in a relationship, or rather in different situations, and they do not want. They think their way is the right way. So, but we come from different places, and we perceive things differently. So I think a man should be able to come down, to that level of maybe the person that they're dealing with, so that they get a common understanding that this one is behaving like this. This is informed by this and that. So men, we need to a bit deviate from the patriarchal kind of, that masculinity in everything, and it is us, it is our way or the highway. So men need to a bit learn how to listen, learn how to understand one another, know that there are different ways of doing things, not their own way. We can negotiate on these things.
So I think that's very important. What you've said is that it's just a constant learning process. So probably just for our listeners here who are, for some guy probably who is frustrated right now, who probably like you isn't getting the communication he deserves, and he's feeling that frustration come up, what will you say is the first thing they do? Is it the first thing, should they talk to someone? Should they try and calm down and try and figure it out? Should they bottle it up? So what would you say the first thing is to when the sensation of questioning and the anxiety and the anger is rising up?
I feel the first thing that I need to tell our men, rather the other friends, is that anger is number one enemy to situations. That when you're agitated by someone at that particular moment, you're not able to make the right decisions, because you'll be making a decision because of a particular feeling that I feel offended. But first is to wait for that feeling, that you let it subside, put yourself together and start analyzing. Sometimes you have to analyze where I went wrong, where I got this right. It's just like an event where this went right, this went wrong. So men need to get to that point. Do not act on anger, do not act on anything, just calm down and start engaging. Like you're saying, when a problem shared, it's half solved.
I think that has really been of much help to us. So in that, we just need to learn. We need to cool down. The first thing, if you're agitated right now, learn to just take a break, probably go to a quiet place, resolve yourself, come to terms with yourself, and and just try and have a stable mind before you decide to get into the situation. So let's talk about something that people have been talking about, is emotional intelligence. In that most men don't really cultivate the emotional intelligence. They're taught that when something comes up, you must react. So for you, would you say that it's very important, especially in your life, to cultivate emotional intelligence, in that when you have a feeling or a sensation, you first understand what is this I'm feeling, and where is it coming from, and how can I fix the situation? Would you say that's very important to emotional intelligence?
Yeah, even the fact that men have been taught on how to respond, or rather to act on an emotion, it depends on how you're going to react to it, or rather how you're going to respond to it. I think we need to get to a point where you first understand, learn, understand it, know where it is coming from, know the origin, know how that is coming up, and you'll be able to respond to these issues as they come.
It's very important. So it's a constant learning process. Like, that's for all the listeners who are listening to for this episode, is that main thing is that it's a learning process. Don't always just jump into react. First respond, not react. And put yourself together before you decide to take a course of action. It's very important that you first figure out what are your options and what is the best way to handle the situation at hand. So my friend Charles, if there's one advice you will tell any man right now who's going through frustration by a person, probably especially from the opposite sex, who's saying, you know what, guy code, there's this lady who is really bugging me and I don't know what to do. I've given her everything and she doesn't seem to reciprocate how I'm treating her. What will you advise them on, dealing with their frustration as a last take?
I think life gives a second chance, whether people like it or not. And maybe I would there's a small story that is given about a family. And this family just, bought a new car, and they had a newborn baby. And because of mobility and movement from one place to another, this baby one day, and to some of us who have gotten their first car, that becomes their first baby. And this young one scratched the car, and their father saw that. He was agitated, he was angered, and he decided to punish the kid. And he took his fingers and placed them on a stone, and hit the fingers. And this young boy was taken to hospital, and later they realized that their hands, the fingers were getting amputated. And this young person, this young man here asked the dad, when are my fingers going to grow again? And there was no answer to it. When he went back and was looking at what the son had done, he realized that the son had written on the new car, that "Daddy, I love you." So see the different reactions in that. So we need to get to genesis of situations. I want people to know that things fall apart for things to fall in place.
That's a very powerful last take from Charles, and thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Guy Code. I hope, guys, it has helped you a lot in dealing with frustration, disappointments. Just remember, always take a breather, learn what is the genesis of the situation. Don't always jump to react. First, take everything into account, analyze your options, and make the best option for yourself and for the other partner, so as to bring up to a solution. Because reacting will cause us to just regret on things that, actions that we took, in our fit of rage. So thank you, Charles, for joining us this episode.
Anytime.
And we will see you next time on the Guy Code. We are out.